how many of those guys have played real football? I mean, that guy did. And how well have they played? I mean, you played two true freshmen at Sam linebacker, 3/4 of the season. Man, you've had Kendall Jackson's had the career of a lifetime, and I think they'd all say, man, OV was kind of the centerpiece of it. And I think a year ago on defense, we were in a tough spot. We weren't in a great place. And what Orion and Anthony have done in terms of taking the culture of the defensive side of the football and propelling it to the best place it's ever been since I've been here has been one of the greatest leadership jobs I've ever witnessed as a head football coach. And so, to both of those guys and others, there is a great, just the greatest win I could ever have seen as a football coach in terms of leadership and selfless acts of making everybody else around them better.
Matt, based on this year, what does this team need going forward to get back to 2020 like?
Yeah, I think that's going to be probably a really great question to ask, in 2 or 3 weeks when I've really got the time to sit down and deep dive into who we are and where we're at. I would say the things that I am very confident on is where we are culturally within our locker room. I feel like we're in the best place we've been, and I think there's pillars to build off of, and I think have learned a great deal from, what we've went through really, this year and maybe some of the things that I thought were not where they needed to be a year ago. And so I think it's a great question and probably can give you a even better, thorough response, sometime after the football season.
What about the same question short term with the short term in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think
or more.
I think the great thing is you've seen us play really good football this year. You've seen us play great team football. You've seen us play the way Iowa State football needs to play to win. And, that's complementary football. That's winning in the margins, starting with taking care of the football, and really doing a great job winning the turnover battle. And when we've done that, we've beaten really good teams, we've played really good football, and we've had the ability in every game to win games. But the reality is when we have done those things, we've won.
I think when we were in here last week, you talked about how you guys historically have gotten better throughout a season. We talked on Saturday how you felt like that was a step backwards.
Yeah, it was.
Putting those two together, what does that tell you?
Yeah, I think the word that I've used, and man, me and you have talked about this a lot, it's just the word inconsistency, and I think that's where as the head football coach you're frustrated at yourself because, man, at the end of the day, I know I've asked our kids to be purpose-driven and process-driven, and I think we're in a great spot there. Obviously, we do have to be outcome aware, right? And the outcome, that's on me. That's on the head football coach. And for whatever reason, we're kind of sputtering in that inconsistency and why I haven't been able to, totally get us out of there yet. It's frustrating. And those are things where I have to be better. I got to find out where that gap is and continue to do everything in our power to plug away, because I think you felt really good about, and I still saw great improvement in a lot of areas. I mean, where we're at on special teams to where we were, where some of the guys on offense and defense are playing compared to where they were earlier in the season. I think it's drastically different. There are some things that have continued to show up that have not allowed us to win football games that, are debilitating. And that's my responsibility. That's my job. And, unfortunately, I haven't gotten us there yet. So I look forward to the challenge. We still got time left. We got a tremendous opponent, senior veteran football team that's, played really good football at times this year too, and have got good players. And, this will be a great challenge for us this Saturday. And obviously the purpose behind our challenge is strong as well with our senior day and all those other things. But, I think the biggest purpose is can we find that consistency that we have not been able to find, for the betterment of the end of the football season. So great challenge for myself, quite honestly.
You mentioned OV took until the bowl game to make a decision. So I guess how do you guys handle senior day and who goes through it, who doesn't?
Yeah, I think the nice thing is, Travis, I think as we get a little bit farther out of the COVID years, as we're kind of slowly getting out of that phase, you kind of probably got as best of an idea in the last 2 years. This will be the third off season that we've dealt with it, of kind of knowing where you're at, knowing, where guys are. And, that may change for one or two guys, but, I think those conversations were even, a lot of those conversations were even had, going into the season. And I asked our guys to really think about that, guys that had that. So, I think we'll continue to see, and man, as you and I know, man, you're going to get to the end of the season from COVID, the transfer portal, man, your roster is going to change. We're not naive to that. I think the great thing that I feel really good about is, man, there's such a great core group that's coming back that you're excited.
Seeing guys less likely to take that extra year as it was probably less disruptive.
I think you're getting to that point. I think you're getting to that point where, that comment, that thought is really, at least what I've seen so far in our own program, it's a little bit different. And not to say, I think they know what they want to do. It's not even, man, do they want to or not want to? It's, man, hey, I know what I want to do. This is where I'm at, either in my personal life, my academic life, or, my football career, to say, hey, this is kind of what I'm going to do. Those are really the bulk load of the conversations we've had.
Man, I appreciate what you said about the mistakes, what's going on, being on you. Don't kids grow up learning how to hang onto the football or catch balls when they're wide open, though? How is that on you?
Yeah, I just think the end of the day, it is global. And the piece of it is, our job is to be great teachers. And one of the things that I've prided myself on is being, number one, a great teacher. And number two is the ability to help our guys understand what it takes to win football games. And in a lot of ways, I think when at our best, we've done a great job of that. And at our worst, at times that it's been inconsistent. And, again, it starts with me and being a great teacher, whether it to be to the coaches or to the staff or to the players. It starts at the front. And it starts with my responsibility to, man, if we're not doing the things that we need to do, then providing a platform and a classroom that makes sure those are addressed, and now we can do those things with great consistency. And unfortunately, that has not been the case so far this year.
You brought up portal, so do you have to re-recruit your guys? I mean, I was reading stuff about Wisconsin's claiming somebody's tampering, what's going on up there. Do you have to re-recruit your guys?
Man, Randy, I hope not, but I always think in the reality, how you run your program every day, it's like a great high school football coach. And, state of Ohio, there's private schools. State of Iowa, there's private schools. You're always, it doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter if there's a transfer portal or you're in the National Football League and it's free agency. You want to create daily a culture that kids say, I feel confident and safe, and I can grow to become the best version of me. And that's how I've always felt like that's my job. That's my responsibility. Everything and everybody that touches the program has a responsibility to 18 to 22-year-olds at this level. Is not to win games, but to help them grow to become the best version of themselves. And that has really been my mission. It's really what I love about my job. What I get to do daily is to try to create that culture. And I think that is re-recruiting. That's proving to who you say you are. And, at the end of the day, if young people believe in that, want to be around that, then I think you're going to get their best. If, man, for some reason it's not a great fit, or, man, I want to go play and I want to get on the field and I'm not playing, then I understand those things too. So I think your job as a head football coach, no matter what level, college football, high school, NFL, man, is to create a culture where people feel aligned and unified towards something bigger than themselves, and they want to come through those doors every day and try to chase the best version of themselves. So if that's re-recruiting, then yes, it is. That's what we do on a day in, day out basis.
Coach, another senior day related question. In your time of doing this and going through these days and seeing different classes leave a program, do you find that there's drastically different legacies that an outgoing senior class can leave on the program? And if that's the case, do you see something different from this group that we're going to see on this field one last time compared to, say, the class we saw last year and, Brees, Brock, Mike Rose, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah, I think every season is like writing a new book, right? And every game's like a chapter, and every senior class is like the main characters. And I feel like, man, every story's different. The circumstances, what's around it, what are all the things. And, I do feel like every year is certainly different. That's the unique challenge of coaching at this level or any level. And I think the thing that has been so fascinating about this group, if there's one group that is going to leave here, I think I said about last year's senior class, they were like the bridge builders to Iowa State football in a lot of ways. And it wasn't demeaning to anybody. That was just, man, the pathway that they showed us, how to win, how to sustain success, how to be successful. They were the core tenets of that. As I look to this year's class, there's a lot of those guys that have been pivotal characters in that journey as well, but not one of those guys came back for personal benefit. Right? Will McDonald would have been a first-round draft pick last year, or he's going to be this year. Anthony Johnson probably would have been a draft pick last year, or is this year. Those guys all came back for personal gain and the growth of the team, the growth of the culture. I would say at times last year, especially towards the end of the season, man, I didn't love where we were. I didn't feel, man, there was just some things in our locker room. There were some things globally. I was just like, man, I felt like we were off kilter. And then I think that happens sometimes, man, as your growing cycles, your life cycle. And to be quite honest with you, what these guys have done, the word is character, right? Like, as I think I said last night on the radio show with John, like, if you missed the character of this group, our staff, our players, everybody else out there, if you miss what the character of this senior class has stood for, then you miss the story. And quite honestly, man, our sport, still one of the great things about the sport of football is it's like, I know I say this, and it's cliche all the time, but man, it is a little bit like life. It throws you adversity, it throws you a lot of crap, it throws you really tough times, and you are defined by how you grow through that. And man, this senior class, what they've done to our locker room, and you guys know, our fans would know, man, it's been tough, man, tough, close losses, you're right there. And this group's never flinched. I mean, how they've played through 10 football games, what they've done, the ability to play the way they played, how they've rallied our locker room, I've never seen it. I've never seen it, because I think sometimes you get to your senior year and you want the result rather than, man, I'm sick of hearing about the process and the purpose. I want the result because I want to end on top. Not one of these guys have acted that way. It's been character. It's been, how do I leave this better than I found it? How do I make sure no matter when I step out those doors, man, this program and the future of this program is going to be aligned in a really special way. And literally, it's been on since January, and it's been as great of a selfless act as I've ever seen.
You mentioned how veteran Texas Tech is. They've battled through a lot of things too, injuries, tough losses, but through having three different starting quarterbacks, they seem to be able to, especially on offense, play complementary football. How would you describe them in that aspect?
Well, you're so right. Now, the one positive for them is all those quarterbacks, other than the freshmen, have played a ton of football. And those guys have done a great job. I do think systematically, they certainly have a unique system. Their system is set up for balance. It's set up for, man, how many snaps can you get? How can you do all those things? And yet I still think, at the end of the day, man, the credit has got to go to their coaching staff of, man, I really think to weather some of that, to have a new guy in there, you have to have a system that allows that consistency maybe to show up at the quarterback position. And so, man, they've done a great job. And certainly you look on the defensive side of the football, man, you're talking, I think 9 of 11 starters starters or seniors, man, I feel like we've played against these guys for, I think I've said this through almost every game. You feel like you're playing against all these same names for the last 4 or 5 years. And so, man, there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football, even in their specialist ranks across the board. They've got a lot of veteran leadership and a lot of veteran players, and a tribute to them across the board because, they've done a really good job there.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying regarding the culture that this senior class has had. What's the importance with how many guys you lost from last year's team that were so important on the previous year's team
Yeah.
to have that link, not only to the success of 2020, but to what it took to achieve that success, to have that extra year bridge for the younger guys?
Travis, whatever the record is, wherever we're at, it would have been drastically different had we not had those guys. And, I think that, and it's not even, as we're learning, right, it's not even just about the cultural piece. It's about what does it take to show up every day, to get on the field on Saturday and make the play? What's it take to play 12 games of college football? What's it take to, handle, you had success and everybody crowns you king, and you've had failures and everybody's mad at you, right? Like, it's all those things that it's hard to understand that unless you're in the arena and you're understanding, man, you're dealing with 18 to 20-year-old and they're trying to learn how to navigate it. And when you got, I would almost say like pros by the time you get to be a senior, especially if you've grown both internally and through the sport of football, and you're ready to give back this knowledge and wisdom that you have, man, it's powerful. And that's why I'd say, man, you look at the defensive side, and Isaiah Lee, Will McDonald, man, Orion Vance, Gary Vaughn, man, you certainly talk about what Anth has done. And then you see the growth of the people around them. Bo Freiler, man, you talk about certainly Jeremiah Cooper, what he's done. Those young pups at corner who have grown into men right before our eyes, like all that growth, in my opinion, has occurred because Orion said, no, we ain't doing it that way. We're doing it this way. Since January, it's been like that. Man, Anthony Johnson, no, we ain't doing it that way. We're doing it this way. This is the expectation. This is the standard. And they aligned it and they got it right. And, I think you're seeing that in pods on offense. A lot of those guys, man, that had all that wisdom and experience, man, those guys left. And so, I think that's part of the growth journey, and that's part of the process to become that team. And even you go back to what Randy says, man, you're building this thing for, success, not only short term, but long term too, is, man, I think that's part of the journey is player driven leadership. I've always said that. And I still feel when we've been at our best, it's been really special. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.